Looks like we are live. Welcome to my video. These are going to be my thoughts on The Gifted Season 2, Episode 4. This episode is called Outmatched. So, another episode I love. Spoilers for everything live-action X-Men leading up to and including this episode. The episode I want to say is rated 12 plus, and so will this video be. Let's dive right in. So, I guess I'll start with the ending. Yeah. Just when we thought we were going to get to see who the one patient that was freed was, of course they cut to black, and we're going to have to wait until next month. I'm gonna try to watch the very next episode as soon as at all possible, because I can hardly wait to find out. And originally people had to wait like a week to find out. That's a lot of time for theorizing. It feels like an eternity to wait, is what I mean. Anyway, let's see, what did, I don't remember exactly what the episode started with, but let's go with the Mutant Underground talk about, are they really gonna go see Wire? Good conversation. I really appreciate that they are, like, actually thinking about, because these are, it's one of those things, like, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And yeah, I really appreciate Reed telling John about the powers. That was also, he told Kate that he was gonna tell John. And yeah, Reed is still stuck in his old way of thinking. He's struggling to accept this new circumstance, which, fair enough, it is dangerous right now, but yeah, he's trying to control what won't. And I can't help but think when he says, there are pills that can slow this down, and John points out that's a very temporary solution. You have to basically accept this part of yourself and learn how to live with it, basically. That really made me think of conversion therapy, for LGBTQ plus people. And let's see, and obviously in real life LGBTQ plus people are not, like, extremely dangerous and violent just by virtue of being a member of that community. But for one thing, people who hate them think they are, and for another, that hatred can make members of the community, especially just as they're coming out, as they're realizing that that's who they are, they might end up feeling like they're dangerous, and it has to be controlled. There are sadly a number of self-hating LGBTQ plus individuals. Some of them are even conservative, even though conservatives have done quite a lot to make their lives miserable and have vowed to keep going even further in that direction. Let's see. Let's see. Then we have, Clarice still being the voice, the sarcastic voice of reason. They go to Wire, and she's like, no, I gotta be here because you two, this is a terrible idea. You have to, John, you have to stop listening to Marco's ideas. No offense, Marcus, but your ideas are terrible, and yeah, they end up getting shot at. So yeah, that was really cool. I mean, if you've got a bulletproof character, you kind of gotta have a scene like that, and yeah, I appreciate, like, we saw, he got shot a bunch, and then we see the bullet fragments, the shells, whatever, the shotguns fire pellets, I think they're called. Wow, it's been so long since I looked at these kinds of things. Anyway, yeah, so that's how little actually broke through his skin, despite, like, he took several blasts at point blank range and really didn't end up actually taking in very much of it. And yeah, we meet Wire's brother, Graf, who tells us how Wire magically came back to life and told him, he hacked the security cameras and saw, and the very very nicely done. The Wire did express paranoia and anxiety, and now he's gone. So are most of the guys. Like, there were at least 2 or 3 people. Let's see, was one of them? I think, yeah, one of them might have been Graf. So it's Wire and 2 other people that are gone. And it's possible the other 2 didn't get killed, but maybe they, realized something was going to happen and fled or something. But yeah, Graf was the only one left now, and that's evidently. I keep mispronouncing her first name, so I guess I'm just going to be calling her Paige from now on. Yeah, Paige. Yeah, let's see. Found out, I guess, that because Sage could probably tell there's a hacker looking into this, and she tracked him, and some really great scenes with Graf. He is not very good at figuring out what to say. Like, he actually thought they were gonna, like, he thought they were gonna back off and be like, you know what, fair enough, you're free to go. When he said, I don't care what they do to your son, they can eat him for all I care. Which, like, wow, you've never met a parent in your life, have you? That's, like, short of, like, the actual cannibalistic parents, that's not something a parent wants to hear. And Marcos is intending to like torture, and it was kind of funny. Like, what you're gonna flash bulb me again or something like that, and he threatens to remove his eye, and then Graf points out, how am I gonna hack without and that was the thing, because like this is not a spoiler, but Burn Notice, the show, which Matt Nix, Matt Nix created both of these shows. That show was rather anti-torture, which is, in my opinion, the exact right perspective. There's, to just speed run through, even people who are like, people whose job it used to be to torture people, some of them have come forth and said, torturing does not get credible intel. There are other ways to get it that do not involve torture, that are more credible, more ethical. And let's see, and another thing about torture is, after 9/11, stuff like 24 had people thinking, oh, okay, there are situations where if you torture someone, you save a lot of lives. And again, people who, are experts in this field have come forth and said, that's not a thing. That's never happened. And like, again, considering that it doesn't provide credible intel, even if you were in a situation where you felt confident that someone knew something, even if they did actually know that thing, torturing the information, torturing them might have them lie instead of give the accurate information. Let's see. So compared to something like Alias, a fairly pro-torture show, Prison Break kind of went back and forth on it. Yeah, Burn Notice, only watched the entire show once, and it's been years. But as far as I recall, it didn't actually waver from its conviction that torture is just bad. It's not a necessary evil. It's just evil. So I was wondering if that was gonna, be maintained here once the drugs entered the situation. But yeah, ultimately, because what Kate did wasn't really torture. It was a different unethical. She forces him into withdrawal, and then she gives him several doses. And he ends up ODing, his having a heart attack. That's not technically torture. The withdrawal was non-consensual. but he did consent to getting the drugs. But it is, the fact that a junkie is begging you for a fix does not mean that it's right to give him one. And she, working in medical care, knows this, do no harm and all that. But yeah, I thought they did a really great job handling that. And also, note, at the end of the day, the Mutant Underground didn't actually succeed here. So, it wasn't torture, but the unethical thing they did didn't even work. It just compromised their morals. And, Reed even says, I don't know who you are anymore. And, she didn't even order different food from the fast food place than usual. And, yeah, he says, this is what Andy's supposed to come home to, So yeah, very, very nicely done. Because that is the thing, like, even if you don't stoop so low as to torture, once you start doing unethical things, like, yeah, what if it doesn't even work? There's always that risk, So, yeah, really appreciate that. The show does a really good job with these, complex issues. Because I feel like if they had just had the two Struckers both say, we can't do anything unethical, I feel like that's just really unrealistic. There's a lot of parents who are willing to do something unethical to save their children, but it's important to note it might not work. And yeah, it does a number on you emotionally and psychologically. Let's see, what was the other thing? I think that covers... Right, yes. One more thing, and then we're headed to Linwood. Jace. We did see the cop, had a look on his face, and he was the one who kept, he kept telling Jace, I don't know what to tell you. You can give the tip. I cannot get you a sit down. And when Jace mentions 7:15, the guy's like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna see what I can do and do what I can. And once he hears that the department is not going to help, he contacts Jace directly. And it's one of those things of, like, if you find yourself allying with someone terrible, you should stop and think about where you are. And by the end of the episode, Jace goes deeper down that rabbit hole. He at first he rejects it, but yeah, by the end, let's see, because yes, this thing of, yeah, it turns out he's the cop is a purifier. And I really appreciate how relevant this show is, because that is something that has become ever more clear in recent years. American law enforcement have a problem with a number of the people. It's not everyone. I'm not saying it's everyone, but there is a certain percentage. I forget the exact number, but you can look it up. You can Google it yourself. There's a certain percentage. I don't expect you to ever just take my word for pretty much anything. There's a certain percentage of American law enforcement individuals who are white supremacists. And there has been just a really stunning reluctance to deal with that. Because, of course, you have to, we're not saying, like, oh, you have to fire everyone. We're saying find the ones that have white supremacist views and fire them. It's not acceptable that there's people out there who have been given a badge and a gun and are being backed up by a huge chunk of the rest of the law enforcement in the entire country, who, when they see someone who is a person of color, they inherently think lesser of that person. Like, a lot of white supremacists legitimately believe that any person of color they see is inherently dangerous, and that's how we end up with all these African Americans facing police brutality, including murder, and way too little in the way of consequence for it. So yeah, really appreciate the show actually going there. Yeah, I really appreciate Jace's, early in the episode, she's not answering the phone, she's not replying to texts, and finally she does answer the phone and says, "Stop calling." And I have to admit, at first I was a little confused. What exactly is, but no, it became clear over the next couple of lines she spoke. She wants him home. She doesn't want him to call, she doesn't want him to text, she wants him to stop, this Don Quixote thing and just go home. He's hurting innocent people, and it's never going to bring their daughter back. And he keeps saying, "No, but I got a lead. It's okay. We can just, yeah." The obsession is destroying him to the point where by the end of the episode, clearly he's going to call the purifier. He's going to work with white supremacists. And I don't know if they had always planned for the character to end up working with white supremacists. But I cannot help but note the character and actor, though, somewhat light-skinned, person of color, So, yeah, I do not believe that was, like, random, or that was something they only realized after the episode aired or something. No, and again, that is sadly a thing. There are BIPOC individuals with internalized racism who hurt other, sometimes even, like, I try to avoid using the word race because it implies that there are multiple human races, and that's not a thing. We're all the same race. There is only one human species. Ethnicities. There are people who, because of internalized racism, attack people of the same ethnicity. There have been cases where African American cops in America have brutalized African American civilians. So, yeah, really appreciate, again, it's willing to go for the complex. Again, like, a lesser show would have had Jay say, "Of course I'm not going to work with you, don't you realize I'm a person of color myself?" No, they're going to explore. Yeah, sometimes, there are, and I realize, it's obviously not a complete one-to-one because Jace does not appear to be a mutant, so it's not, 100% one-to-one, but yeah. I mean, even the stuff the Purifier says, we're just regular people who care about families and country, and, it's white supremacist talking points. It's yeah. I think that covers everything about Jace. So let's go straight to Linwood. Yeah, I quite appreciate the detail that, this is where Lorna was kept. She was traumatized by it, and now she went back, so it must be important. And Clarice even accurately, unironically uses the term triggered. I hope that one day we won't even have to say, when I say triggered, I don't mean it ironically, I mean it seriously. Yeah, she's saying this is triggering Lorna's anxiety, which is a completely accurate, and yeah, that's how that term is meant to be used. Let's see, yeah, I think they did a lot of really great things at Linwood. The one thing is, I really wanted to see John use the axe and the knife, but there was a lot of really great stuff. Even so, just the cutting back to Graf, who can hack into some cameras, but he can't tell where exactly they are, and these kinds of things. So we see, okay, they're definitely in the building, but we only see them through the cameras, except for once John is able to get Lorna to come back out, and then at the very end of the episode, the confrontation near the gate with the car and the whole thing, so yeah, that was a very effective choice. I really appreciate it, because it's like, it's good for us to see. No, they are in there. It's because, like, if you don't show them in there, it's gonna feel like, well, are we 100% sure? This is a universe where people can use special powers to trick other people, but no, clearly they are there. And we also have the thing of, Kate, we both saw the footage. He was smiling. Nobody's forcing Andy to do this. But yeah, when John and Clarice walk through these empty halls, like, so creepy and really, really nicely done. Just like, places like this are creepy most of the time, but places that are that, like, unsophisticated in their approach to dealing with mental illness. But when they're, like, abandoned and there's blood on the walls and stuff like this, just, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, and John touches the floor to track. I forgot to call that out. That was pretty funny when he did that in the sewer, and Clarice was like, "Are you sure you want to touch?" Okay. In like the episode before this one, I think it was. But yeah, the some really great creepy stuff there, and yeah, John and Clarice do manage to get, and they even see several of them leave, including Lorna, and John shouts, "Lorna, please, just talk to us. I mean, you're probably gonna have to shout, or we won't be able to hear, or maybe just come closer. I don't know." And Lorna, she wasn't turning back to hear him out. She was turning back so she could look him in the eye as she opens the doors, which might, like, I suppose it's unlikely that he'll die, although one of them bleeds acid. I feel like that might be able to do it. It definitely endangers Clarice, and it, like, slows them down to the point where they won't be able to stop them. And that's what she's communicating non-verbally. She's, like, yeah, this is me. Nobody else is doing this. I'm doing it. I'm not being made to do it. I'll look you right in the eye and endanger your girlfriend and slow you down. Just, like, stop trying. Leave us, let us do what we're doing. Like, it's essentially a warning. Like, if she really wanted to do something that, like, I think she might be able to kill him if she really wanted to. And I'm not sure there's anything, like, Clarice, she definitely wouldn't be able to do anything if the others joined in to help with, so yeah, it's a warning. And at first I was a little about the fact that, okay, so the mental health patients are freed and some of them are, like, trying to kill each other. That feels very, very ableist, but they do, say, okay, we got to save them, save as many as we can of them. And ultimately, I think what the show is trying to say is, if you imprison people like that, they will eventually become violent, because we already know Lorna came out of there and she's done a lot of good. Currently she's, in a bad place, but, doing evil things. But it's, yeah, I think that's what they're going for there. And I do appreciate, if none of them are attacking each other, then it's not quite as much of, like, a crisis that they have to deal with. And if Lorna attacks a patient, that might feel like too bad. Like, I wouldn't rule out they're going to try to get her back to the side of good by the end of this season. That's going to be difficult if she's attacking, mental health patients, especially considering she used to be one. Right, I really love the line of, so they're taking away these people's freedom, and I think it's Clarice who points out all they have to do is have a psychiatrist say that they're a danger to themselves or others, and they get locked up. And that's, again, that's a thing that actually happens. It doesn't only happen to minorities, but yeah, sometimes it's used to target minorities, an example off the top of my head, they used to, consider it a mental illness if a slave was trying to escape. You know, that it's apparently utterly irrational to not want to be beaten, raped, have your family taken away from you, forced to work for no wages. Like, just, yeah. And I know there's gonna, you know, sometimes when you point out that slaves weren't even paid, like, it wouldn't have made the other treatment okay, but, you know, if you weren't a slave, you would at least get paid, and you wouldn't be abused quite as badly. But yeah, some conservatives hear, you know, oh, slaves weren't being paid, and they'll say, well, they got room and board. Okay, tell you what, you try it. You try living like a slave, and then we'll see how you like it. And I'm not even saying, you know what, I don't want anyone to live as a slave. Not anyone. Nobody deserves that. I think we should make, like, simulations, and, like, at a certain point in, like, school, in public school, when they're old enough, I'm not like a psychologist, so I'm not 100% sure. Something, maybe at some point in their teen years or something, they should have to play a, not quite like video game, but a simulation of, like, being a slave, and afterwards should, you know, you quiz them, you make sure that they understood the lesson that slavery is completely unacceptable. Now, let's see, and yeah, you know, they also for a while said, you know, LGBTQ plus identity is a mental illness. People got locked up for that. Women who didn't obey their husbands or who were upset at the marital rape would also be considered mentally ill. You know, a huge, like, a just really depressing number of women were given lobotomies. Now, you know, for that, not for, you know, not because they were actually, I want to say, what did they used to say? I think it was like, if someone was violent. You know, thankfully we've stopped doing, at least in a lot of the world, we stopped doing lobotomies entirely. But yeah, back then they would say, well, if they're violent, it might be, you know, maybe that keeps them from doing violence. But sometimes it was done to women who were just saying that they didn't want these horrible conditions anymore. Let's see. I haven't watched BoJack Horseman, but I did hear, I think at this point several YouTubers talk about, there's a character, I won't give away who, but they do a thing about lobotomy on that show, exploring, you know, some of the reasons, and yeah, I hear really good things. Let's see. Yes, I think that does bring us nicely back outside to the gates of Linwood. And yeah, you know, Marco says he's gonna use his power to stop the car. I do appreciate that they didn't take forever to, it would have been pretty silly if they just did take forever to talk about how they're gonna stop it, because it's like they start talking when it's already headed towards them, which I appreciate. Is like, you know, it's we're supposed to build tension here, so of course they're not going to have that conversation before they even see the car, because it's like, you could probably have foreseen this coming. Like, there's one exit, you know they came here in a car, there's a chance you're going to have to stop a car, you know. But yeah, they didn't take forever to talk about it, and Marcos agrees with Lauren to let her try to handle it, and yeah, you know, not a surprise that the shield is able to stop it. I was wondering if Marcos was going to try to blow out the tire while she held the truck back, but basically he is trying to give her a chance to resolve the situation. And, like, blowing out a tire is not the least violent thing in the world, you know. It's not the most either, but it's not the least. And you know, especially, like, imagine if, like, the driver, like, panics when Marcos raises his hands and fires up the power. If he blows out the tire while they're very speedily backing up, that could, like, the car could turn over. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, not just anyone gets out of the car. It is specifically Andy, and he tells her to let them pass, and she refuses. And so he does what Paige undoubtedly said. I mean, she did specifically. She said about Marcos. Anyone can go against an enemy, but if you what's the word? It takes a lot to go against a friend. And I do really appreciate we do get there's a little bit of doubt sowed. We in the episode before this one, Marcos may have sowed some doubt in Lorna's mind. It might just not have fully gestated. Is that though? That's not what seeds do. Grown. It hasn't grown too much yet. But this episode, very much has Lauren plant a seed in Andy's mind. I really appreciate the bring up of the dream. Your hair looks just like the dream, which takes him, that he's slightly off balance at that. And she says, "You've been having them too, haven't you?" And I forget if I said, but I do think it is noteworthy that when Lauren had the dream, she saw the two of them destroy the world because Andy refused to stop, using their powers together. When Andy had the dream, he saw Lauren refuse that they use their powers together and accidentally fall off the building. So both of them are afraid of a different thing, and both of them do think that, whether, yeah, she's more afraid that he'll succeed, he's more afraid that she'll struggle so much that it'll hurt her. Both of them do believe, are having this sort of premonition, it seems, that one way or the other they will Fenris twin up. And yeah, I'm thinking there's some chance that's going to happen later in the season, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the circumstance and the aftermath of that. Let's see. Yes. Ultimately Andy does use his powers, and Lauren gets, thrown back, lands, with her head on the pavement. Holy crap, what a stunt. Like, wow, that did look extremely real. And we see, there's blood on her hair afterwards. She did, like, even if there wasn't, that would still, it could still be really dangerous, really serious. But the fact that there's bleed, like, there are parts of your body where if a little bit of blood comes out, if you prick a finger, you do bleed, but as long as you stop it before a lot of blood comes out, if it's just a small little prick. That reminds me, I wonder how Donald Trump is. Anyway, yes, I know, shame his policies, not his body. I agree. Sometimes I just get petty. The thing is, I don't know if it is small, but he's acting like it's small, and it's hurting people, and that's what bugs me. Anyway, yeah, that a little bit of blood, as long as it doesn't get infected, as long as you stop the bleeding, that's okay. If there's blood coming out of part of your head, that can be like that can be very dangerous, especially if it's because you just hit your head against something and just, yeah. And that also, that leads to Reed, like, losing control of his powers again, and yeah, no one, it is clearly triggered by stress, which is, that's been I forget if it was always like that in the comics, but it's definitely been like that, in the, yeah, very early in the first X-Men movie, and this is somewhat the same continuity, I believe, yeah, your powers first manifest, often after a period of heightened stress, and then, when you become stressed, you struggle to control them, which is also just like, you don't have to have superpowers to, it can be difficult to, like, focus, for example, if you're very stressed, and mutant powers require a focus to not lose control of. So yeah, right. I really liked when, but yeah. To finish off, yeah, Reed, really loses it at hearing that Andy actually hurt Lauren, and he has to pick the pills up off the floor. And I appreciate, he's trying to be careful not to touch people directly too much. That is the thing, like with John, I don't know, I mean, I guess he thinks the worst thing I'm gonna do is like ruin the sleeve, because John has thick skin, literally. But yeah, after telling him, so, when I touch things, they disintegrate, and then he touches them. Yeah. It's one of those things, like, because it's a sign of, like, it's a tiny bit of physical affection. It's a friendly thing to do, and if he didn't do it, it would play slightly different. Yeah. But yeah, I quite like Lauren pointing out, that in the pilot episode, I was able to calm Andy down. The moment he saw me, he calmed down. She thinks that's where Andy still is, and realizes that's just not the case anymore. He actually purposefully used his power. Like, I don't think he was hoping that her skull would crack, but he knew there was some chance that that was what was going to happen. And again, like, we see shortly after, I forget if it was all three, but at least two of the triplets are there in the car. They could use their powers to temporarily take over Lauren's mind and push her off to the side. And I don't know if their powers would still work on Marcos after that, but they could, like, tell him, if you don't back off, we'll hurt Lauren. If you do back off, we'll release her as soon as we're clear. But no, specifically, Andy uses his powers, and we do see on his face, like, he's clearly, like, it bothered him. But yeah, this is going to be difficult to come back from. So really appreciate when media is willing to push characters to a place like that. And let's see, I think, yeah, at the very end, we see, there was a forced confession. And, on Twitter, it is trending. It is, yeah. And a number of people are supporting yeah. And I mean, the tape doesn't show it, but we, the audience, saw. Like, we didn't see the tape be recorded, but clearly after that tape was recorded, that's when they attacked the personnel, and they seem to all end up dead. So, yeah. Right, love the camera. Yeah, it's too bad that they did eventually have to cut, but yeah, there's only so much you can do with turning a camera in such a tiny space. But yeah, they almost did. It wasn't quite a 360, but a 180. They almost did a 180, and we see everyone who's in the car, and most of them look, like, yeah, those of the triplets we see seem quite satisfied with it. And Lorna is also like, we did it, mission accomplished. And with Andy, there is just a little bit of trepidation that was like, I mean, he never thought that he would hurt his own sister like that, even when she broke his favorite toy. And yeah, yes, we learned that on Twitter the movement is getting support, and it's one of those things where, because they don't know everything that happened there, so basically, yeah, the show is trying to comment on this thing of, like, public support and freedom fighter versus terrorist, kind of, it's a matter of perspective, that kind of thing. And I don't know if I think they're doing a pitch perfect job. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those episodes that hit different after, the I forget if it has an actual name, but I'm gonna look it up real quick. So, wait, was it? Oh, it was the. Yeah, the October. Okay, it doesn't look like it has a specific name, but yeah. So on Wikipedia, it's referred to as the 2023 Hamas-led attack on Israel, and I'm not saying that it was good or right what Hamas did there, but the counter has been so extreme. And I don't know. I mean, it's possible that in one of the next episodes they're going to show an extreme counter. And certainly, the show has made clear that it's bad that Sentinel services are hitting mutants so hard. But then these are the bad guys. Like, there's no real doubt that Paige and the triplets are villains in this season. So, and I don't know if they're going to remain for the entire season, but at this point in the season, they're villains. So, yeah, I don't know, because I'm not sure. I have to admit, that is the first thing that comes to my mind is Hamas. I'm not sure I've heard of other. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Could it be referring to like IRA and such? Those the terrorist attacks in the. Yeah, I suppose it's possible that it's that. Which again is a thing of it. Yeah, I don't know, the way that the episode ends. It feels like it's very much saying, well, it's acknowledging that this was a bad thing without necessarily focusing on, I don't know, it just, if there had maybe been a character that we think of as good who said, they should have stopped abusing mutants long ago, or something like that, but yeah. Like every so often on the show, including this episode, they'll bring up 715, which is clearly an allusion to 9/11, and the response to 9/11 was also hugely disproportionate. So, that's, yeah, I feel like so far on the show, they've done a really great job showing that the response to 715 was disproportionate, like the response to 9/11, which was something that we were ready to, acknowledge in here in the West in, let's see, this episode's from 2018, but yeah, I think maybe this should have been earlier in the episode, or they should have had the line I mentioned, or something. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose also, yeah, I mean, it does matter that the video that is getting support shows guilty people confessing. It doesn't show them dying. So, yeah, I think the element of control of information is important here, and it is perhaps also meant to invoke ISIS. I could see that as being, because that there were a number of Westerners who wanted to join ISIS. I believe some even succeeded in joining ISIS, or at least got pretty far into. It's been years since I last looked at a story about that, but yeah. And sometimes I forget things in seconds, but yeah. I'm hoping. I think there's, it's not like it's the finale. There's still time. We're a fourth of the way through the season or so, fourth or fifth, something like that. So, yeah, there's a chance that they could turn it around on that. But yeah, other than that, really love the episode, and I do really appreciate, it does come in the same episode as, when we see, the some of the good guys do something really unethical, like what the Struckers did to Graf,